Welcome, everyone, to Rewilding Wellness Wednesdays. I am Dr. Christy Vanacore, and this is a podcast, yes, but even more than that, it's a community, a gathering space, and a movement. So here each week, we come together to remember what it really means to be well in body, mind, spirit, and soul. This is a space to listen, learn, ask questions, and share your voice. This is a sacred space where ancient wisdom and modern science meets, and where we stop trying to fix ourselves and instead focus on remembering who we truly are. Each week we gather not just for information, but for transformation, for connection, for the medicine of story, movement, silence, song, and community. Because rewilding wellness is not something we can do alone. It's only something that we can do together. And in doing so, we become part of something bigger than ourselves, a movement back to wholeness. I'm so thrilled to have you here. I'm Dr. Christy Vanacore, doctor, medicine woman, author, lyricist, ceremonialist, prominent trailblazer, offering a different but essential approach known as Rewilding Wellness for adults, children, teens, and families. I utilize a multidimensional and bioquantum practice for holistic healing and thriving. So after witnessing the staggering rates of chronic illness in both adults and children alike, and the ineffective and disempowering practices of modern traditional medical care, I recognized that my life's mission was to bring the health and wellness industries back to its roots, to reconnect people with their innate self-healing capacities. For over 2 decades, my work has integrated mind, body, and spirit, and honors that we are foundationally vibrational beings, and that healing can only be birthed from the union of science with soul. So as we come together to heal through frequency, embodiment, cellular recalibration, and regeneration, I guide individuals and families to rediscover their body's brilliance and timeless wisdom so they can realign with the natural synergy of all of creation. I am here to light the way as you remember your roots, rekindle your instincts, and reclaim your sovereignty. Through all of my experiences, both private and collective, I will help you courageously navigate life with grace, ease, peace, and harmony so that you can soar, steady and strong, open, awake and aware, and resilient and ready. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to talk today about something that I have been keenly aware of that I'm living in, and something that I know that so many of you are carrying as well. And it has to do with this label that is called the sandwich generation. Those of us who are caring for the generation below us, our children, and the generation above us, our parents. And this is a lot. Let me tell you, it is a lot. It's a lot of juggling. And I'm hearing stories about this week after week in my circle of security group, my circle of care group that I created several years ago. And it's a circle of security in that we safely come together. And it's a circle of care in that we focus on caring for one another as we're working on caring for the other important loved ones in our lives. And personally, for myself, I've been becoming so aware that my mother is aging, advancing in age. Her mobility has been compromised more recently. And, I'm really noticing it now. I'm really noticing it in ways that it may have been going on for a bit. I know it has, but I didn't want to see it. I just think I didn't want to see it. And, I'm just this past weekend, it was sort of in my face as I watched her trip and fall. And she was unable to help herself. And, she lives alone. She's fairly newly widowed. And she lives alone. She lives in an apartment that is accessible via a very tall and steep flight of stairs. And all of a sudden it really hit me, that this is going to just get increasingly difficult for her, and that my need in her life to provide care is much sooner than I thought. And all of that is happening while I'm raising my two children, right? So I'm dealing with my mother's issues, my children's issues all at once. So I'm being pulled in two different directions and giving everything I have, and wondering, will there be anything left for me? And this is what I hear. I'm not alone in this. I hear this week after week, as I said, in my circles of care group, as well as in my private one-on-one sessions with clients. The majority of my clientele are parents. And, again, if if you're a parent and you have parents who are alive, you are part of the sandwich generation. Just this week alone, one of my clients, a father of two young children, primary caregiver, father battling multiple chronic illnesses, including cancer, he said, I'm drowning. I'm drowning. And most people in my life don't understand. Right. And I felt that in my bones, and again, I'm hearing this consistently. So today's conversation is for all of us who are caught in the middle. And we're trying to keep everyone healthy and supported and loved and alive, while quietly and often secretly wondering, who's holding me? Who's caring for me? So that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go with this conversation today. And once again, today's conversation, as it's been in the last 2 weeks, normally this is done on video, and it's a community setting where we're all on camera and we can share. It's really important to me to do that. And I'm in the process of finding a new platform in which to host these really important community events. And so I'm in limbo at the moment. So, I'm trying to make it all work. So unfortunately, this will be just an audio recording for this evening. So let me just briefly define this concept of sandwich generation. And again, it's this is not rocket science. Obviously, it really just means caregiving and caretaking that are happening in two directions at once, right? Above and below. And it's just important that we understand that. And in a little bit, I'm going to be talking about, one of the nuances of this topic that comes up a lot, again, in my circle of care community. So let me just share with you a couple of stories. I'm the storyteller, and stories are medicine. So I want to share a couple of stories, and I have their permission to share it, although I'm changing their name just out of respect for privacy. I'm going to share very briefly 3 stories from 3 of the participants in my circle of care group. And these folks have been with me for quite a while, and we become like family. It's really beautiful. So let me tell you a couple of points about Carol's story. Carol. So Carol is juggling. She's waking up at 5 a.m., prepping lunches for her 2 children before getting them off to school. By mid-morning, she's at her mother's apartment, organizing her pill boxes, cooking meals, taking her to her appointments. All the while, her phone is buzzing all day with calls from her children's teachers, pediatricians, specialists, as one of her children has a pretty severe chronic illness. Her phone is also ringing from her job, that she is incessantly having to claim that she's working from home because she simply can't get into the office to do her work at an advertising firm. So by the time she's doing all this running around, by the time she gets home in the evening, she's drained, she's depleted. And now she still has to help with homework, manage dinner, and get her kids to bed. And this is a quote from her when I asked her if she'd be willing to allow me to share her story. She said, "I feel like I'm always dropping a ball. No matter how hard I try, everyone only gets pieces of me, No one ever gets all of me. So that's Carol. I want to share Bill's story now. Bill is a provider. So Bill works full time, very often logging between 50 and 60 hours per week at a minimum. And he has his own family. He has one child and one on the way. And he's making decent money, but his paycheck covers not only his own household, but the medical expenses of his father, who has cancer. On the weekends, Bill is shuffling between soccer games for his son and hospital visits for his dad. During the week, he's running around bringing his wife to doctor's appointments as she is having a high-risk pregnancy. He's really proud that he's the rock for his family. But in his words, late at night, I lie awake, exhausted, wondering how much longer I can keep holding everything together. It's like I'm sprinting this marathon and I don't see a finish line in sight. That's Bill. And now a few words about Patricia. Patricia, the silent daughter, as I call her. Patricia is an only child raising 3 children of her own while also supporting the care of her aging mother, who lives across town. She recently moved her mother closer to her so that she can take care of her. So Patricia receives calls from her mother multiple times a day, often in crisis. She falls a lot. She gets disoriented quite often. And Patricia has applied numerous times for in-home aid or even part-time aid for her mother, but her insurance does not cover it. She doesn't qualify. So it lands on Patricia as she is the only child of her aging mother. So she's had to miss school events for her 3 children to care for her mom. And she loves her mom deeply, but is always torn and tormented. And these are her words. Patricia says, I can't be in 2 places at once. When I'm with my kids, I feel guilty that I'm neglecting my mom. When I'm with mom, I feel like I'm letting my own kids down. I can't talk about this out loud anywhere except for here. People may judge me because at the end of the day, I have to be honest that I resent the weight of caregiving. I wish it weren't me. That's Patricia's story. So it's very clear, and I'm sure it's not lost on you listening, that the core themes involved in being this sandwich generation, it's, this emotional whiplash from juggling multiple generations and all that go with it. It's the constant financial and energetic drain. It's the endless guilt for never feeling quite enough in any role. And then there's this entanglement of love and loyalty that gets mixed up with exhaustion and grief. And it kind of becomes this jumbled emotional mess. So it's really important that we have these conversations, because right now, if we just zoom out for a minute and look at the larger scope here, more adults than ever at this moment in time, in 2025, are raising kids while caring for aging parents simultaneously, more than any generation before. Okay? We've got parents feeling burdened under the weight of endless caregiving, And in case you don't realize how widespread this is, in case you don't believe me, let me give you some statistics. Okay, I love the data. The numbers don't lie. So right now, approximately 1 in 4 US adults, that's about roughly 23%, are part of the sandwich generation, caring for both aging parents and children under the age of 18. Now, that number jumps with age. So more than half of Americans in their 40s are dealing with this. More than half. And the caregiving doesn't stop as the kids get older. So currently, it's estimated that 59% of people in their 50s continue to support both generations financially. And research is also showing that nearly 30% of all caretakers fall into the sandwich generation. And for those under 50, it's closer to 47%. Wow. Wow. Right? More than ever. This is a bigger issue than most realize. Now, we need to also look at some more data here. There's some additional numbers that I researched and put together. When we look at the cumulative hours and the emotional labor placed on those of us in the sandwich generation. So on average, families are spending 22 hours per week on elder care and 28 hours a week on childcare. Over 2.5 million Americans are juggling multi-generational caregiving. And it is estimated now that 54% of Americans are reporting substantial emotional difficulty because of it. In other words, in these surveys, these individuals who participated in this research noted that their number one stressor in their life was multi-generational caregiving. So the stakes are high, and they're emotional and financial. 36% are reportedly experiencing serious financial hardship, and more than half report being unable to meet their own household expenses due to care-related costs. Whew. Right? These numbers, this is the reality check. So these numbers are not statistics. They're really a wake-up call that caregiving and caretaking across generations is now the norm. It's not the exception. And it's a role that we need to recognize is defined more by endurance than choice. And that's the sad reality. And that comes up a lot in my circles of care community, right? That it's not necessarily by choice. And of course, that leads a lot of people to become guilty, right? Well, I wouldn't choose this, I wouldn't choose this. As you heard in the story, of Carol and Patrizia and Bill, right? So the role, this caretaking role, can truly erode our physical, emotional, spiritual, financial well-being if we don't make space for self-care. So the emotional reality here is burnout, exhaustion, resentment, grief, guilt, right? There's a silent shame, parents feeling like they should be able to do it all. But the truth is nobody can. Nobody can. And the impact of this, it's multidimensional, right? You guys know that when I help people, I work on the multidimensional being because we are multidimensional beings, right? So there's an energetic tax that we pay when we are energetically drained and moving and shifting into states of incoherence, which only leads to physical issues like illness and disease, exhaustion, autoimmune flares, the list goes on. all the emotions, the guilt, the resentment, the grief, the anger. Psychologically, our mindset is compromised. We never feel good enough. We're always spiraling in circles. We're constantly worried, am I going to get the call that my mom is on the floor? Am I going to get the call that she's at the bottom of the stairs? Just like I worry, am I going to get the call from school that something happened with my kids? Another mental drain is, and again, we talk about this a lot in my Circle of Care group, which is decision fatigue. Having to be the one who's primarily responsible for making the decisions, right? Obviously, if you're a parent and you have children under the age of 18, you have to make their decisions, right? For the most part. But as your parents and the generation before you age, and their insight and judgment and mental capacities are more and more compromised and fragile, you are now in the position of having to make decisions for them. My client who I mentioned earlier, the dad of the two young children whose dad is battling cancer, he's now in a position where, in addition to his own job and in addition to the caretaking of his dad and his children, he is also navigating his dad's assets and his dad's financial profile. And his dad owns, certain interests in different businesses. And now he's the one making all those decisions and calling all the shots. It's exhausting. So that decision fatigue is real. So energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally, never mind spiritually, where we're just disconnected and numb and totally lost. Totally lost. So this is important. This is urgent. With the statistics that I just rattled off a few moments ago, this is urgent. So I want to take a moment to talk about, I referenced earlier that there was this sort of nuance as it relates to this topic, to this idea of caregiving and caretaking. And again, this is something that comes up so often in my circles of care community. And I think that it's really going to resonate with those of you out there who might have a tendency to dismiss your own experience because maybe you feel you don't do as much as someone else. So I'm thinking of another young woman in my group, and it's her and her sister caretaking, and she's always saying how she feels like she shouldn't even belong in the group because she's not the primary caretaker. Her sister is, because her sister does an average of 15 hours and she only does about 6 hours. So she almost feels, guilty taking any credit. So for those of you who might resonate with that, I think it's really important to say this here, that there is no hourly minimum when it comes to caregiving and caretaking. And one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear is that caregiving and caretaking is defined by a certain number of hours that you spend providing care. And then there's the nuance of, well, are you providing physical care or just emotional care? And which one is, which one counts more? I've heard this. Which one counts more? So I've heard people in my community say, well, I only drive my mom to the doctor once a week. Or, I just check in on my dad with a phone call every night, but it's nothing compared to what my sibling does, or it's nothing compared to what my best friend is doing for her parents, or, and there's some measurement, there's some benchmark that they're comparing themselves to. Caregiving, caretaking is not measured in hours. It's measured in energy, in emotional load, energetic load, in the way that your mind, never fully turns off because you're holding someone else's well-being in your heart and in your hands. And even the small acts of care, they're not small. Any act of care takes planning, presence, emotional bandwidth, right? Sometimes just, even the anticipation of a task, like worrying about an upcoming appointment or wanting to make sure that medications are in order or wanting to make sure that you were listening to the doctor and got the instructions correct and it's proper, you properly know how to instruct your loved one. This is as draining as the task itself. That decision fatigue, that endless worrying that I mentioned before, that's real. That's draining. So whether you're providing daily round the clock care, or whether you're the one the parent calls when they're in need, you're a caregiver. You're a caretaker. All of it matters. At the end of the day, caregiving isn't defined by how much you do. It's ultimately defined by how deeply you care. So I hope for those of you experiencing that guilt, that what I just shared is helpful. It all matters. It all counts. It's all important, right? If what is energizing your action is love, it matters. So I want to shift now to talking about self-care for you. Self-care for you, for us, for those of us who are in the middle, those of us who are in the sandwich. Right? Now, self-care, I hate this expression. If you work with me, you know that. I absolutely hate that expression because, self-care is this sort of like lofty concept that gets thrown around a lot now. And it sort of calls to mind images of like, just take a nice soaking bath, And some people would say, oh, I'm engaging in self-care. I'm drinking a nice glass of wine at the end of the day or whatever. So I want to talk about something deeper than self-care. I want to talk about a return and a restoration and a recalibration of you, right? I want to talk about it as really returning to our roots and our rhythms that sustain us instead of depleting us. And I want us to shift the conversation to talking about concepts like sacred reciprocity, so that just as we care for our children and our parents, we must let life, community, spirit care for us. And I want to give some examples of really sort of simple but really deeply impactful practices that you can implement in your life, not just to check the box and say, okay, yeah, I'm doing my self-care. That doesn't count, right? What is energizing the action? So I want to give you practices that are actually going to work on very deeply healing you from this bioquantum perspective, right? This understanding of who we are as light beings. This perspective that is going to help us to detoxify, to release all of the energetic burden that we're carrying so that we can be restored to a sense of coherence. Coherence is balance and harmony. Okay, when I speak, I'm using language that represents who and what we are as multidimensional bioquantum beings. So we need to restore coherence and balance. That's how we move back into a state of ease as opposed to dis-ease. Okay? And I want to introduce these practices using the framework of the 4 universal healing salves. So I teach this model that was shared with me from elders of old: singing, dancing, storytelling, and silence. So let me explain what I mean by these healing salves. These are the remedies that the ancient ones used for us to reconnect with our soul, reconnect with source, and restore ourselves to energetic coherence, to recalibrate our beings so that we vibrate at our natural higher frequency, which in turn leads us to be healthy and well. So let's talk about this first healing salve, which is singing or using the voice. This is a vibrational reset. Okay, so from a bioquantum perspective, the voice is frequency medicine. So a simple humming or toning activates the vagus nerve, which is the longest cranial nerve in the human body, connecting the brain with the body. And when we tone and activate the vagus nerve, we instantly shift the nervous system from the sympathetic stress state into the parasympathetic state of restoration. Okay, so if you're a caregiver and you're living in a constant state of alert, even just a couple of minutes of humming or chanting will create more coherence in your biofield. And in turn, that brings your heart, your mind, and your body back into resonance. So what does this look like practically? Okay, because, look, if you know me, you know I'm all about bringing this into real life. Okay, there's a lot out there. Let's make it practical, right? So what does this mean practical? Okay, this means humming in the car between errands. And by the way, when I say humming, it's not just like flippantly to a song. It's a very deep guttural sound where you can actually feel the vibration coming from your throat. When I hum that way, I almost feel tickling on my tongue and the backs of my teeth. There's a vibration that instantly brings resonance back to my biofield. So humming in the car between errands or humming while cooking. But again, that intentional hum, setting the intention that you're opening up that vagus nerve, setting the intention that you're giving your body and your energy body a vibrational reset. Okay, so let your voice release the tension that you can't put into words, right? Either because you can't say what you really feel in the presence of your loved one, or, you're out in public, or it's not appropriate, or you don't even know the words, right? Let your voice release that tension that's beyond words. Okay, so let's talk about the dancing. Dancing is movement. Okay, so we're talking about movement practices that target energy flow. Okay, flow and ease is a state of health. Dis-ease, blockage, is a state of sickness. Okay, so if we want to keep ourselves healthy and well, as we are doing all of this caretaking, then we need to be working with the flow of our fundamental energetics. So movement is fundamentally how we metabolize stress. So in this bioquantum model, stagnant energy shows up as contraction in the fascia. That's our connective tissue, which is really our primary nervous system. Then our nervous system, then at the cellular level. So gentle movement, stretching, shaking, dancing, all of that restores flow through the energy meridians or the channels that are moving through your system. And it works towards detoxifying the biofield. So all of the energy layers, the light layers that surround you, that get clogged and congested. Movement helps to detoxify. Movement aids in the release, and it prevents that emotional buildup from turning into illness. Okay, if you're not new to me, then you know that stored and sequestered emotions and trauma are the root cause of all disease. I don't care what the disease is. Stored and sequestered emotions are the root cause. Right? So when we can move with intention, we will be detoxifying the biofields and preventing that buildup from stagnating and causing us to get sick. What does this look like practically? right? So this can be in between caregiving tasks. Take 2 minutes to just shake out your whole body, shake out your arms, shake out your legs, shake out your hands, shake out your head and your neck. Literally just bounce around and shake your body. Sway your hips from side to side, swing your arms from side to side and up and down. Walk barefoot on the ground, be barefoot on the ground while you do these practices for additional grounding and also the absorption of electrons that are in abundance in the Earth's crust. So each of these movements is a micro reset for your whole system. So that's dancing, is movement. Let's talk now about storytelling. Storytelling is about repatterning your energy fields. Okay, so stories, the stories that we carry, they carry a frequency. So think about the stories that you repeat throughout your day. The ones like, I'm so overwhelmed. I can't do this anymore. This is so hard. I'm exhausted. This is killing me. I need help. Now, none of those expressions are wrong. Please know. Okay. And none of those expressions mean that you can't handle anything. There's nothing bad about those expressions. But we don't want the energy of the overwhelm to imprint stress into our biofields. So we need to shift the narrative. So we need to tell stories of resilience, connection, even humor. And all of that will help to repattern the biofield and also create new neurological pathways. So for caretakers, storytelling also helps to bridge the generations, turning any hardship into legacy instead of burden, which I think is so important. You guys know I talk about legacy a lot. So storytelling here is the bridge to create that legacy, to weave that legacy. So some practical examples of this, again, rewrite those narratives. I'm not just a caregiver. I'm a holder of space. I'm a witness. I'm a lover. I honor my loved one. Share family stories at the dinner table that are bright and uplifting and keep the memory and spirit alive. Those are ways that we can really repattern our energy fields. And doing this around our loved ones, around our parents, and around our children is vital. It's vital because the temperature, the climate, if you will, of our biofields predicts the climate of the biofields around us. I didn't make that up. That's science. That's science that tells us that co-regulation is a thing. So our children's nervous systems regulate in coherence with us. Our parents' nervous systems regulate in coherence with us. So we have a responsibility to do this. And now let's talk about silence, the last of the 4 healing salves. Silence here is about coherence in the biofield. And silence, we hear the word silence, and we're so conditioned to think that it means emptiness, but it's not. It's a regenerative frequency. So in stillness, the nervous system can recalibrate, and the biofield can reorder itself, and your immune system can strengthen. So silence is actually a primary detoxifier. So it's not just our thoughts, but all of the energetic debris that we pick up through the constant caregiving. Silence is the salve that restores coherence when our lives end up feeling fragmented from all of that debris. So what does this look like practically? Step outside. Close your eyes for even a minute. Turn off the noise and the distraction and allow silence to reorganize you from the inside out. So many of us are ridiculously uncomfortable with silence. We are so used to the noise and the chaos, but that doesn't mean it's healthy or helpful, right? So create those moments to just be still. Let everything still move around you. That's okay. It will. But you find a way to anchor yourself from within. Okay? This is really important. So just to sum this up here, caregivers, we think that self-care, first of all, we think self-care is frivolous. Well, I don't have time for self-care. I'm a busy working mom and taking care of my family. I don't have time for this. So we think that it involves hours that we don't have, but it doesn't. From an energetic perspective, coherence can be restored in moments. So as I mentioned, a meaningful sway and shake of the body, a powerful rewritten narrative story, a pause in silence. These are lifelines. These are not luxuries. These are lifelines that don't take time. So when we can create these small but impactful vibrational opportunities, our biofield strengthens. And when our biofield strengthens, everyone that we care for will benefit due to co-regulation. So another takeaway point here, healing does not only happen with the big grand gestures. It happens in the tiny rituals that are repeated over time, that help us to stay connected and centered within ourselves instead of getting swept away by all of the chaos around us. So this idea of micro care, one breath, one hum, one song, one pause, can shift everything. Okay? Setting boundaries, right? This could be as simple as saying no to what drains you to make room for what sustains you. Boundaries are life-saving, and that's not being dramatic. Okay? Ask for help. We're not meant to do this caretaking alone. And again, that's the reason why I created that Circles of Care community years ago. And I learned that back in the day when I was working for a prominent teaching hospital, and I was supporting children through chronic illness and diabetes and helping their families. And each one of those moms whose children were so sick, they all felt alone. And I said, no, that old adage, it takes a village, that means something. That's real. So this isn't meant to be an individual sport. We're meant to create these circles of support. So it's vital. Regulation, we have to self-regulate before we show up. So the reason why all of these things, all these practices, the voice, the movement, the storytelling and rewriting the narratives and the silence, these things are vital. Yes, for you. Yes, to take care of you. Yes, to help your loved ones regulate. But it also helps you to enter into the system, right? So let's say you're going to the hospital to visit your parent. You can't be walking in there totally dysregulated. Just like walking into your home and your children are there, you can't be walking in dysregulated. So this allows you to set the tone so that you can be present in a way that is exuding love and care and connection, as opposed to perfection or stress or resentment or anger. Right? So just some additional practices that I want to offer. And by the way, I have, if you're new to me, I offer wellness guides. So my next book, Rewilding Wellness, Rooted Wisdom to Rise Well, will be coming out in the late fall. But for now, I'm offering these wellness guides, which are like these jam-packed, super condensed guides on different topics that are super user-friendly. They're full of practical, evidence-based strategies that are doable, right? They're practical. You can integrate them in your lives, that will actually shift your energetic system, your nervous system, your mood, build resiliency. So if you're interested after this and you'd like to get my caregiving guide, let me know. Reach out to me, Christy@ChristyVanacore.com, and I can share with you the information on how to get the wellness guide. And in the wellness guide, I go through detailed practices. I also have several videos where I recorded certain mind-body practices just for caregivers. So also, if you're interested, Christy@ChristyVanacore.com, get in touch, and I will let you know how to access those as well. But in the meantime, here are some practices that you can begin implementing now. Okay, so first is a mind-body practice of breathing. Okay, so research has shown consistently that just 3 to 5 minutes of slow, deep, intentional, rhythmic breathing reduces cortisol levels, which are the stress hormones in the body, and it activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of your nervous system responsible for restoration, rest, right? The rest and digest. Okay. So something that you can try is the 4-6 breathing method, where you inhale through your nose slowly for a count of 4, hold it for a moment, and then exhale very slowly for a count of 6. And you would take that and repeat that numerous times. Slow, big, deep inhale through the nose. Hold it. Exhale slowly for a count of 6. Okay, so that's a mindful breathing practice that you can implement. The next practice that you might want to try is a progressive muscle relaxation. So that's when we just systematically tense and release muscle groups. So it's like if I said to you, okay, 1, 2, 3, on the count of 3, squeeze, 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 squeeze everything in your body. Tighten and tense your fingers, your hands, your arms, your shoulders, your back, your belly, your chest, your neck, your head. Tight, 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 tight. Hold it and then let it all go. That systematic tensing and releasing of the muscles really can help reduce that dysregulation in the nervous system. It reduces anxiety, and it helps the body to recognize that it's safe enough, that you're safe enough to let go of any tension that it was holding on to. Okay, so that's progressive muscle relaxation. Another practice is just gentle stretching. Okay, if you like yoga, fine, but it doesn't have to be formal. Okay, you guys, I'm very practical. You don't have to be a yogi to do this. In fact, it's probably better if you're not, because then we get caught up in, am I doing this pose the right way? Or forget that. Forget that. Stretch your body. Okay, research shows, evidence supports that intentional gentle stretching reduces stress, improves sleep, eases musculoskeletal tension. Okay, even just 10 minutes before bed is amazing, so that you can clear what's stagnant, so that your body will let you get to sleep. Okay. Another practice that you might want to do is journaling, writing, expressing yourself, okay? Just 15 minutes of dumping, getting all the emotions onto paper without rereading it, without analyzing. The mind is not invited to that. Okay, it's just about dumping. It's just about expressing what's on your heart, what's on your mind on paper. That can also help to lighten the load, right? Also, having self-compassion, practicing kindness for yourself instead of self-criticism. Again, evidence-based has been proven to reduce burnout and strengthen resiliency. It's powerful. Some daily lifestyle practices that are key here: sleep hygiene. Okay, Consistent bedtime routines. And if you work with me, you're probably rolling your eyes hearing me say that if you're listening, because I talk about it ad nauseum. We are rhythmic beings. We're cyclical beings, right? We have circadian rhythms. We need to be on a consistent bedtime routine. No screens an hour before bed. Dim the lights at night. Have a cold room, as cold as you can stand it. Right? Same bedtime every night, same wake up time every morning. All of these sleep hygiene practices are linked to diminished stress and improved immune function. Okay, another part of our lifestyle that we need to tune into is nutrition. I cannot tell you how many of the beautiful souls in my circles of care group who do not eat all day long because they're, quote, too busy. And so by the end of the night, they're drained, they're wired. Some of them are shaking. Some of them are waking up in the middle of the night, having blood sugar episodes, where their blood sugar is either high or too low. They're a mess. Their insulin is a mess. Their cortisol is through the roof. So prioritizing blood sugar balancing meals that have adequate protein and healthy fat and fiber, this stabilizes your energy. It stabilizes your mood. And this is so important for the role of being a caregiver. So important. Okay, so these are just some practices that you can begin implementing right now. They don't cost any money. You don't need to join a program. You don't need to hire someone. These are things that you can do in your life right now. By the way, I say that. I don't mean don't ask for help if you need it. Please do. And please reach out to me anytime. But I also want you to realize, again, if you know me, you know that my whole thing is about activating the healer within, activating your own inner physician. You have everything you need right within you. And just by starting with these basic practices, you will feel empowered. And oftentimes that's enough to bolster resiliency. So before we end this for the moment, I just want to offer you some reflections here, some questions to help you just tune in. So just kind of take a moment to ask yourself, where in my life do I need to offer myself the same care that I offer everyone else? Where in my life do I need to offer myself the same care I offer everyone else? Spend as much time with that. Then ask yourself the question, how can I be more kind, compassionate, loving, and attuned to myself? Because I know, if you're listening to this, I know that you ask yourself that question as it relates to your loved one. I know you're a mom or dad who thinks, gee, what more could I be giving to my kid? Am I giving them the best of me? How can I be kinder? How can I be more attuned? How can I be more present? How can I be more available? You're asking that of yourself as a parent, and then you're asking that of yourself as a caretaker. Where can I be doing more for my parents? Where can I unload some responsibility from their shoulders? I know you're asking that question of them, but you're not asking it of you. Where can I offer myself? Where am I not giving myself the kindness that I need? The compassion, the understanding. So sit with those questions. Listen to your heart. In the meantime, let this brief blessing wash over you. May you be held as you hold others. May you be nourished as much as you nourish. May you always return to stillness in the storm. May you always see beauty in the mess. May you remember that your worth is not measured by what you give, but instead by who you are: love, light, and presence. And may you know deep down in your bones that you are never alone. You are always held by a bigger circle of care. And so it is. Thank you to those of you who are listening to this. I hope that you find it incredibly helpful. Hope I gave you a few nuggets of wisdom to think about and reflect on. Again, if you are interested in the wellness guide that accompanies this topic, let me know. If you are interested in the video of some body practices, some movement practices that you can implement in your life, let me know that too. Christy@ChristyVanacore.com. Send me an email with any feedback. I love to get you guys, when you guys give me feedback after these recordings, because it's really meaningful to me. I'm here in service. So I want to make sure that the topics that I'm covering and the wisdom that I'm sharing is landing and resonating and is really translating into something meaningful and practical that you can integrate in your life. So give me feedback, please. I love it. And also, if you're interested in reading my first book, which is Rewilding: A Woman's Quest to Remember Her Roots, Rekindle Her Instincts, and Reclaim Her Sovereignty, it is available wherever books are sold. You can also get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads, all of those, and many local booksellers carry it as well. My next book, Rewilding Wellness, Rooted Wisdom to Rise Well, will be coming soon, as well as a book of poetry and lyrical wisdom weavings. So many things are coming. In the meantime, again, I hope this is helpful. Thank you for joining me on this mission of Rewilding Wellness. And I'm wishing you health, wellness, and wild. Lots of love.